Hey everybody, Ryan Medora here, and welcome back to another blues bass playing lesson. This has been a fun theme that we've had on the channel so far, and it kind of coincides with the 12-bar blues survival pack, which is available on my website, ryanmedora.com. It's got backing tracks, tab notation, brief rundowns of different blues tunes and things like that. So if you dig this lesson and you want accompanying materials, please head over to ryanmedora.com and grab that. But in the meantime, let's dig into this. So this is a fast shuffle. It's kind of a box pattern. This is a type of shuffle pattern that is often played on bass and mimicked on guitar. And famous tunes like I'm Tore Down is probably where you've heard this. Freddie King's got a version, Clapton's got a version, all that kinds of good stuff. And it's also very similar to the bass line for The Seventh Son, the Great Willie Dixon tune. So in fact, we can actually attribute, these kinds of bass lines to the Great Willie Dixon. But for this particular one, we are going to be playing like a quick shuffle in the key of D. So I'm going to find my D here, 5th fret of the A string, and we're going to be playing a standard 12-bar blues. So we've got 4 bars on the 1, 2 bars on the 4, 2 bars on the 1, bar of 5, bar of 4, back to 1 for 2 bars. Standard, straight up 12-bar blues. And we are going to use what's called a box pattern because it makes a box shape on the fretboard. I'm going to be playing my root, the octave, the flat 7th, and then the 5th. So in this situation, as we're playing in the key of D, we'll have the low D on the 5th fret, the higher D here on the 7th fret, and then C and A. Those are going to be the notes for our pattern starting on D. Now, once you get these notes under your fingers, you'll see that it does kind of make a shape of a box on the fretboard between the 5th and 7th fret. And because this is a pretty fast-paced bass line, I find that from a technical standpoint, it's easier to kind of like not worry too much about the traditional 4-fret span rules and instead have more of like a contracted finger pattern, I guess, using what I call the 3-fret span, where we're using our first finger and our pinky primarily. So try using just those 2 fingers and see how it feels on the fretboard. And play it like that. We're also going to do 2 attacks per note, so we're going to give it this shuffled 8th note feel. And that's how it goes. Now, you might end up getting quite a bit of string noise and ringing. That's because, typically when we move in this direction on the fretboard, we have some potential for some string ringing and things like that. The best way to keep it quiet is by using, the alternating your first and second finger on this hand, and then also trying to keep your fingers real close to the strings, if not just gently resting on the string with your first finger, and that should help with the muting aspect quite a bit. So once you get this pattern down, try playing it 4 times on your D. And then we're going to take it down to G, which is the 4. Now I'm going to go and descend to my lower G because if we were to play it like this, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, we'd get to this G, but we can't play the pattern here because we automatically run out of strings. So even though we might want to just move right next door, we can't fit this pattern there. We have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, realize that it's a G, and then take it down to the G on the 3rd fret. So once we're here, we're going to play our box pattern. I've got a G, the octave G, F, and D, and that's our G pattern. Play that twice. And then we're right back to the D. And then we're going to move to A and play the pattern just once. So again, we're going to go to our lower A. And we're going to find that right here on the 5th fret. So just kind of move right next door, same pattern. I'm going to go A, here's the octave A, G, and then E. Take it down to G, the 4 chord. And then we return to D for 2 bars. and that will complete our 12-bar form. So I'm going to play it now. I'm going to slow it down quite a bit, and hopefully you can follow along with this, but the whole 12-bar form is going to sound like this. Now, as you play this, you're going to realize like, oh, this is not the easiest thing to play. This is a little bit of a challenge. And as you increase the tempo, it's going to become slightly more difficult. And one thing you might also consider doing is in terms of shifting positions from, let's say, the 4 chord back to the 1, you can integrate a little bit of a slide. So when you're on that G, sometimes I'll just slide up to that D there. So that I'll play the pattern once regular, and then that second time I'll go root, octave, 7th. I'll play the 5th just once, and then I'll use my first finger to slide from like the C up to D, and that'll kind of set me up positioning wise to begin the pattern starting on D. So it's okay if you have a couple little slides like this, even if it requires a little bit of finagling with the bass part. You know, you'll probably hear other people do it too. You'll hear guitar players do the same move where they'll integrate a little bit of a slide just to help reposition, particularly at these faster tempos. So try that, get it under your fingers, try it nice and slow, work on that muting, and yeah, enjoy. If you want to get tab notation, backing tracks, play along things, all that good stuff, head over to ryanmadura.com for the 12-bar blues survival pack. And in the meantime, happy practicing, everybody. Keep it groovy.